Now, it was 9 years ago now that my life turned into a complete tipped out jigsaw puzzle, and I was struggling to find a way to put it together. I found myself cast adrift out to sea, treading water, hoping for a life raft. Our son Baxter had passed away. I found myself instantly transformed from a woman who was happy, ambitious, confident, outgoing, to a complete and utter empty shell of my former self. I struggled with grief. I struggled with despair, disbelief. I struggled with overwhelm, brain fog, depression, anxiety. I had difficulty leaving the house. I lost all of my confidence. I felt like I was really at the bottom of the ocean, looking up to the surface, wondering if I'd ever find air again. Would I ever reach the surface again? I found myself asking questions. Will I ever recover? How will I ever be able to move forward with my life? How will I ever be able to put the pieces back together again? And then my other questions were, what's happening to my brain? Why am I so overwhelmed and forgetful? What is going on with my brain? I knew I had to start piecing the puzzle of my life back together again, but I didn't even know how to take the first step. I felt like I had a hole the size of the universe in my heart that no one else could see, and I was still trying to function in life, completely invisible to everybody else. Now, naturally, I saw counsellors and psychologists. Of course, I did all of that. But I really felt over a period of time, after telling my story again and again, that I was just telling my story in a circular, dusty path, getting nowhere, with no tools, no resources, no way forward in my life. How was I ever going to conquer and manage? How was I ever going to put the pieces of my life back together when life had so drastically fallen apart? Now, it was about that time where I had a close girlfriend that very kindly came up and offered out a hand and suggested or asked me if I wanted to come onto her yoga retreat in Bali with her. And she wanted to gift it to me, and I'd never received anything quite so generous. She said, look, I know that you've been struggling. I can see that you've lost a lot of your confidence. You've lost a lot of your ability to make decisions, to move forward with your life. And I know that you're still struggling with grief and sadness, and I really want to help you. And because I'd been circling for so long in one direction, actually with no tools or resources or a way forward, I at that point in time, I pressed pause and considered her offer. And do you know what? The first words that came out of my mouth at that offer were, no. No, I don't want to do that. I'm a bit apprehensive. I don't know if I can step out of my comfort zone. I don't know if I can meet other people. And the other reason that I was saying no was that I'd never prioritised myself before. I realised that throughout my life, my career, I was a physiotherapist, always looking after everybody else's health. I was a teacher, always helping others learn. I had spent my entire life prioritising everybody else's needs and had no idea how to prioritise my own. Now, the first statement that I said to myself was, maybe I need to start prioritising myself. Maybe I can say yes to this. But then a second question came to my mind. With everything that had happened, part of me had a dialogue of self-blame. Like, maybe if I'd just changed this one thing, if I'd gone back in time to that week, to that day, to that hour, and if I just said something differently or acted in a different way, maybe this whole story would be different. Maybe something would have changed. And with that dialogue of self-blame comes, I'm not worthy. You know, I'm not worthy of receiving such a generous gift. I'm not worthy of joy or love or connection or anything positive ever again. I'm not worthy. Now, fortunately for me, right at that time when I was considering, look, I never prioritised myself and am I really worthy of all of this? I came across a quote by Dr. Demartini, and that quote read, whatever you have or have not done, you are worthy of love. whatever you have or have not done, you are worthy of love. And I read it, and there was something that just really pierced inside. It was like, no matter what I've done or haven't done in my life, I'm worthy. And for the first time in my life, I actually said yes. I rang my girlfriend back up and just said, I've changed my mind. It has to be yes, because I need to start stepping into knowing that I'm worthy. I need to start prioritizing me. I knew that my pathway at this point in time was only heading in one direction. My health was suffering, my work was suffering, and I knew I needed to make a change. I'd reached a crossroads and needed to step onto a new path. And that path started with understanding that I'm worthy and that I need to start prioritizing myself. So I went on that retreat, and I will say it was the best first step that I've ever made. And I think we can all agree that sometimes the first steps are the hardest, right? And it was my biggest, hardest first step. And it was that week that I actually spent some time reflecting. I reflected on the way I'd been looking after my body health, which I knew wasn't ideal. I reflected on, how was it that I was going to piece my mind health back together again? I was reactive, overwhelmed, stressed a lot of the time. I needed to understand more about my own mind health. And I also needed to understand more about regulating my emotions. I'd felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster for so long. I needed to start figuring that out. So at this retreat, I started a plan for myself. And this plan was the beginning of the Rise Up program that I share with women each and every year. Now, the Rise Up program became the exact steps that I needed. And I want to share them with you. I want to share them with women because I know as women, we need more tools. We need more resources. When life falls apart and things don't go to plan, we need a step-by-step pathway to find our way through, to navigate through life's mess. Because I know as women, we've got more to give. We've got more life to experience than simply treading water in survival mode, hoping for the best. And so how many women out there actually feel lost, loss of confidence, overwhelmed, depleted when life falls apart? Now, one of the difficult things about grief is it can be very, very isolating because every single story is unique. And so when you're navigating through grief and you feel like no one understands your specific story, suddenly you feel isolated, like no one else understands. And part of that is because each grief story, in actual fact, is so unique. No two grief stories are the same. And when you feel like your story is unique, it can mean that suddenly you feel like no one actually really understands. And that gives you that sense of, I'm totally isolated here. Many of us believe grief only exists when someone passes away. But I'd like to reflect that in actual fact, that's not true. Grief is there when life falls apart, when there's a breakdown in a relationship or a breakdown in family, or there is a health crisis or a career crisis, or life is simply giving out too much and wearing thin. When suddenly your life isn't quite turning out as planned and you're turning around and looking at yourself and everything around you and wondering, how did I get here? How did I get here? And you find yourself treading water in survival mode, looking out for a life raft. Now, it's my mission to help women transform life setbacks in whatever form they take for women into confidence, clarity, and courage once more. It's my mission because I've been there and I've walked the path and I understand where you've been. It's my mission because I too felt that there were not enough tools, not enough resources to help me move forward. So isn't it time to start prioritizing you? To know that you are worthy, you are enough, and you are loved? To know that with a hand that reaches out to you, the life raft, if you just choose to step forward, that we're here to help. If you'd like to know more about how the Rise Up program can help you, please click the link below to find out more.